So impressive start for Washington. What about Oregon, Ashley?
Yeah, Dave, Marcel, Dylan Gabriel, a highly anticipated debut for the Oregon Ducks' new starting quarterback. It was an interesting one today in Austin, taking on Idaho. The Duck leading the team out for their first official Big Ten game and started well enough. Dylan Gabriel to Tez Johnson. Think we're going to be seeing a lot of that this year, Brock.
Oregon fans have been trying to tell Big Ten fans this Tez guy is for real, and he wasted no time proving it.
Ducks up 7-0. A little bit later, how about the defense? Jack Lane throws to the end zone. Brandon Johnson with a terrific pick. Tips the ball. Oregon up 14-0 at the half, so maybe you wish they could have finished some of those drives. But the biggest thing is third quarter, all of a sudden, things start to go sideways for the Ducks. A trick play, and Lane finds Jake Cox wide open for a touchdown. It's 14-7. 6 minutes left. It's a 3-point game, Brock. Oregon fans.
Not what the Ducks had expected.
Not feeling good, but these two come through in the clutch again. Dylan Gabriel to Johnson. It's a 12-yard strike. Oregon goes on to win by 10. Rhett Lewis was there and has more with the winning head coach.
All right, Coach, you knew you were getting a feisty Idaho squad here. Bottom line, your team's 1-0. What'd you learn about them tonight?
We got a lot to learn. We got some film to go clean up. You're always going to celebrate a victory, but there's plenty there for us. Credit to Idaho. They played a great game.
Coach, Dylan Gabriel in his 50th college start here tonight. Do you feel like his leadership and experience became valuable late game, keeping this team calm?
Yeah, absolutely. He's a great communicator. Obviously, there's a lot of things for our team to be able to clean up from this game, and we're going to go attack it.
All right, Tez, first one here at Austin Stadium. Certainly had some tense moments. How would you describe the feeling with your guys after this win?
It's always good to win, right? It didn't turn out the way we liked it, but we got to go back to the doctor on Monday, fix our mistakes, and come back out swinging.
So I think at this point, a win is a win is a win, right? They're all pretty. None of them are ugly. But Oregon fans, I think, went home feeling a little bit unfulfilled. And the thing I think that sticks out is that the last couple of years, this offensive line, they've only given up 5 sacks total each of the last 2 years. They gave up 3 in the first half. So what'd you take from tonight?
It's exactly what you said. It's so tough to find a rhythm as an offense when the offensive line is not where it is supposed to be. Now, when you ask Dan Lanning, hey, we need to clean some things up, that's exactly what he's talking about, that offensive line, because as a head coach, he's buttered his bread being dominant in the trenches, and that was not the case. So the run game was not there. Dylan Gabriel was getting hit way too much. It all goes back to that offensive line. You got Boise State around the corner. Historically, they back down from no one. You got Oregon State. Obviously, Jonathan Smith is not there, but that is a culture of physicality. That offensive line play today is not getting it done in the next 2 weeks.
We should say a hat tip to Dylan Gabriel, who I don't think anyone had him throwing 49 pass attempts today against Idaho, but he completed 4 of 2 of those, and he has now gone over the 15,000 yard mark for his career, just the 8th player in college history to do that. But they take the win and they move on. And they play Boise State, which, interestingly enough, they've never beat Boise State. 0-3 all-time against the Broncos. One of those scratchers.
Be careful with those Broncos.
Yeah.
They are no joke.
No joke. All right, Dave, we're being careful with you and Marcel. Back to you guys.
Oh, you should be careful with us. We actually are a joke. But Michigan and Fresno State defending national champs Sharon Moore and company taking on the Bulldogs. Defense looking pretty good early on. Zeke Berry coming up with the interception deep in Fresno State territory. Davis Warren actually started this game, went most of the way at quarterback. This is Alex Orji with his lone completion of the game, hitting Donovan Edwards. Michigan goes on top 7-0. Colson Loveland may be the best tight end in the country. Warren hitting him here. Just 269 yards of offense, though. Little stagnant. But the defense was phenomenal. How about Will Johnson with the pick 6?
Will Johnson read the play. He has that number 2 on. When you put that number 2 on for the Wolverines, you got to make big plays out there. And you know who I'm talking about with Charles Woodson. So great job to end this game.
Longest pick 6 for the Wolverines in 13 years, 86 yards. They win it 30-10. The quarterback on the mind is Sharon Moore.
Him and Alex had a really good training camp, but ultimately he won the job. The last week, really, he was just consistent, took care of the football, made plays against that defense that you saw out there. So for us, it was a guy that they played hard for both players, but he ultimately took the job and won it. So, that made the decision easier for us.
Davis, officially named starting quarterback for the Michigan Wolverines. What kind of emotions were you having leading up to game time?
Yeah, I think at first just proud of the work I'd put in and feeling like it paid off a little bit, all the work we put in all spring, all summer. And, it's been a lifelong dream of mine since I came to Michigan, since before then, of leading a team like this and especially defending national champions and seeing what JJ and the guys did last year, man. We just want to replicate that and surpass that as much as we can. And, yeah, a little nerves here and there, but I felt like I was ready to go, super prepared. And, it's great to get the win.
Defense didn't waver all game long, and Will Johnson comes up with that INT to give you the ball back. Yeah. What can you say about that unit?
They are unbelievable. I mean, all like I said, all spring, all fall, we've been battling against them, and man, they're a hell of a group, and we're going to lean on them, and there's going to be some games where they're going to lean on us, and it's going to be that all the way through, and we're one team that's just going to keep gelling, keep coming together more as an offense. We got a lot of work to do, but just proud of the guys.
I think it's a fair assessment. They've got some work to do, and I think it's to be expected when you look at all the players that they lost to the NFL. What did you make of this offense? I mean, no play longer than 21 yards. It was a little stagnant, as I said. Yeah. What do you take away from what we saw?
Well, Dave, I'm going to start. It's not the way you expect to start the season as a national champion. I'll start with the good first. The defense played with what you need to play. Attitude, effort, and energy. And this defense is going to be something to reckon with throughout the rest of the season. We saw that in week 1. Now, moving on to this offense, there are so many questions right now that need to be answered. They never really seem to get on track. Nothing looked comfortable. Nothing looked confident. Rotating quarterbacks in and out. There wasn't that confidence and swagger that you need to be a defending national championship offense.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say they had 3 games under 300 yards of offense last year, and they won the national championship. To your point, this was not an overwhelming offense last year. It was an overwhelming defense, so you see signs maybe of both of those. But we heard Brock and Ashley talking about what's on tap for Oregon next week. Texas is on tap for Michigan next week, so you're going to be better than that.
And the difference between the offense last year and the way they started this game this year is last year they played with confidence. They weren't extremely explosive. They were efficient. This offense here stalled out way more times than they played efficiently.
Still 16th straight win, 41st in their last 44 games.
Just win.
It's pretty good, just win, and that's exactly what they did. It is hard to disagree with that assessment. Let's check out Ohio State taking on the Zips of Akron. Ryan Day and Chip Kelly teaming up. Pick it up in the first quarter. Will Howard, Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith put on an absolute show, Marcel. This guy considered maybe the best freshman in the country, the recruiting circles, and you certainly understood why on this day.
Absolutely. He proved that he's worthy of that comparison.
How about this grab right here?
Great catch, but also a dime of a football throw.
One-handed. Smith, 6 receptions, 92 yards. Howard went 17 of 28. 3 touchdown passes. Ohio State would score on the next play, make it 24-3. And then the defense, which is just going to be fabulous this year. Lathan Ransom coming up with that loose ball. Ohio State 52-6. Telly Hughes got the reaction.
Coach, how would you assess today's performance by your team?
I felt like second half really turned it on, played well. Early on, a little bit sloppy. I think some guys were pressing a little bit early on, and Will's first game in the shoe, and so same thing with Jeremiah. So I thought there was some nerves early on. They were worked up, but I thought as the game went on, they settled down.
A lot of hype around Jeremiah Smith, 6 catches, 92 yards, 2 touchdowns in his Buckeyes debut. How high is his ceiling?
Yeah, it's pretty high. You can see it. And I think he would tell you he probably didn't play his best game today. Did some nice things, but we'll get back on the film. And first game, it's a start. Figure out where to go in week 2.
Will, how would you grade your Buckeyes debut?
Yeah, we started out a little slow. Wish we could have cleaned some stuff up in the first half. But we really settled in that second half. I think we did some good things, but we're definitely going to have to go back and look at some things. It's never going to be perfect, but it wasn't as good as we want it to be, and we just got to keep moving on from here and learn from it and grow.
Marcel is your first year with us, but we have kind of an annual disclaimer at the beginning of the year when we talk about Ohio State, which is that they judge themselves at a national championship caliber. That's how they want to be talked about. That is the goal at the end of the year. It is clearly the goal at the end of the year. with this team. So I'm going to ask you, look, you won 52-6. It's really good. However, is it what you expected? Is it worthy of the number 2 ranking in a national championship contender?
Well, they're judging themselves the way they should be judging themselves. These Buckeyes started off slow. They go into half, Ryan Day and company, along with Chip Kelly, calm that group down, regain their composure, and come out. And by the end of the day, they're showing why they're the number 2 ranked team in the country. They played like a national champion contender.
Defense, the defense is going to be phenomenal. We were at practice, and Chip Kelly was telling us sometimes we're doing inside run, and we have a really hard time getting back to the line of scrimmage. And you can understand why on this day they're going to cause a ton of havoc.
Absolutely. Penetration is the one thing that can kill any offense. And that front 4 got penetration. The back end, they were stalwarts back there. That defense is going to be something to reckon with going on throughout the course of the season. And this offense is going to be special.
Defense, 5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, forced 3 turnovers. Let's talk about Penn State here. James Franklin was saying at the end, we feel pretty good, and they should. That is a tough place to go play. They were excited for this game in Morgantown. And Penn State pretty quickly took all the air out of the balloon.
Morgantown shut down all classes.
Yeah.
There was
no school yesterday, like the elementary schools.
There was no school anywhere, no school, no work. Shut the entire town down for this game. So they were absolutely ready in anticipation for a huge game. And all things considered, you're talking about the location of where you're playing, the opponent of where you're playing, weather delays. I think that Penn State had the most complete win of the day.
Here's the great thing for them now. They go into this hostile environment and win. Their next 4 games are at home. Actually, they do not play a road game until October the 12th when they head to USC.
Not bad. I still want more shots of Urban Meyer during that lightning storm, personally. All right, let's go to Iowa City. Illinois State, no Kirk Ferentz on the sidelines today, serving a 1-game suspension for a recruiting violation. So Seth Wallace takes over head coaching duties. Tim Lester, we got to see his offense for the first time. Early on, not great, but second half, they turn it around. Cade McNamara to Reese Vanderzee for that one. And then later, how about to Jacob Gill? 31-yard strike, 3 receiving touchdowns in the second half, Brock, which is as many as they had all of last year. A little bit later, more to Vanderzee. An incredible leaping 19-yard strike, a true freshman. You don't see that very often.
True freshman had quite a day, and I do not want Vanderzee to fall by the wayside. He is in that group.
Caleb Johnson, the running back, suspended in the first half, and it felt like there was like a pressure release valve in the second half when he was able to come out. 64-yard strike to the house here. That was pretty. Melanie Ricks caught up with Seth Wallace and Cade McNamara after the win. 40-0, the shutout.
What did you say to your team to really get those guys going in the second?
Yeah, I just told them that, we need to pick up the pace a little bit. Our urgency needs to improve. And, the guys, they clearly responded. I'm glad that we deferred because we had the ball there in the second half, and they took it down the field. And it was, that was what we were trying to do most of the game.
Cade, what a great game for you today. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. What was it about today that really got you going?
I think, honestly, just getting into the groove again. We had a little bit of a slow start, but we really picked up our tempo in the second half, and I think, once the O-line, they really found their groove, and it kind of opened everything up for the rest of us.
Well, and something else you said was you feel 100% healthy, and it's the healthiest you felt in 2 years. Do you still feel that way after your first game here this season, and how do you feel about your team for the rest of the season after this win?
Yeah, absolutely. I felt really good. I ran a little bit more than I was expecting, but, I felt really good. My body feels good, and I think, the longer that, not just me, but, the rest of these guys, we can stay healthy, I think, that's going to give us a really good chance in the long run.
And I think for Cade McNamara, you can't help but be happy for him. It's been a long journey. It's been 2 years since he felt like he's been healthy. So to get out there and after the first half where things didn't quite go well, Brock, it felt like everybody settled in the second half. And I'm assuming for Iowa fans to sit back and watch their team put up all those points in the second half, that probably felt pretty nice.
They were certainly nervous in the first half, right? The entire conversation this offseason was a new-look Iowa offense, and throughout that first half, it was, Same old, not quite. Now, I'm going to give Cade McNamara a ton of grace. Yes, he has seen a ton of football, but he spent the majority of last season injured, so he's allowed to have a little bit of jitters, and that is what we saw in the second half. He gets his running back. He knows that the defense is going to hold him down, and he was true to form. I am not worried about this Iowa offense whatsoever. They will be fine.
And the defense does what the Iowa defense does,
what they do
which
best.
Is lock people up. All right, we got more to come. How about Dylan Raiola? We were talking about all the true freshmen today that had big performances. None maybe more exciting than his. There was so much excitement in Lincoln, Nebraska for a guy that I think reminds you of another NFL quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. Raiola,
he certainly earned it.
Looking deep. Isaiah Neyor. Matt Rule said he did everything right today. The 59-yard strike puts the Huskers up 16-7. And they were cooking early. Next Nebraska drive, Gabe Ervin Jr. He missed most of last season with an injury. Punches it in for a score, the first of his 2 touchdowns on the day. But Raiola, pretty. Jamal Banks, 19-27, 238 yards, 2 touchdowns in just 3 quarters of play. Allison Williams was there and has more with the Huskers.
Just started on the bus drive over here. It got heavy on me. Just so thankful and grateful for everything that my parents have sacrificed and everybody that's been a part of this journey. So I'm just very fortunate. I think about the third drive. First and second was really a lot of adrenaline and like our script, but. Other than that, we settled in, and my running game took over and did a great job with that.
With 8 seconds left in a timeout to take a shot in the end zone, right? That is saying that we're going to play the way we want them to play someday. And I didn't call a timeout and say, hey, now remember, hey, get it up, get it down. And he took a shot, and boom. So I was really happy with that. So I thought for a first game for Dylan, a lot of great things. I think there's a lot of things we have to clean up as a staff, and we will.
This day and age of the portal and the transfers, you don't see many true freshmen at quarterback getting their start. So your assessment of what you saw from Raiola today?
I knew he was the guy before the game even started because he was the first man off the bus. And also, when the team was headed to the field, he was leading them out there. I know that doesn't seem like a big deal. He's the quarterback, but for him to do those things, it sets the tone. This is my offense, and this is my team. And for some 18, 19-year-old to be thrown into the fold, the last thing that a coach wants a young quarterback to do is to be timid, is to be conservative. He is out there slinging that thing with no hesitation. You would always have to tell a guy, you would rather have to tell a guy to rein it in a little bit than to put your foot on the gas. No worries with Raiola. He has a crop of receivers. He has a stable of running backs. This Husker thing, I'm just going to come out there and say it might be turned around.
Yeah, I mean, that balance, 284 passing yards, 223 rushing. The defense did their thing. 42-7 was the final. And you think about what they got coming in next week. Lincoln is going to be a scene with the Colorado Buffs rolling through, which a team they haven't beaten in a while.
And number 15 is ready. And number 15 is ready for that moment. That's what I wanted to see as well. Okay, when the stage is even a little bigger, under the lights, Deion's coming to town, Raiola's fine.
Raiola's fine. He's all good.
5-0 all-time against Hawaii for UCLA. Again, it was not a work of art. I think you heard that in what Deshaun Foster said. Still, they got a win. Most impressive thing was what?
Their resilience. I mean, you learn something about your team every single game. And one thing that Deshaun Foster and that we all learned about UCLA is they can be resilient. They were down. They came back. They had a lot of struggles, a lot of miscues on the offensive end of the football. But yet they came back and ended up winning the game, which is the one thing that matters no matter what is you come out with the W.
And when you don't play great and you win, you got a lot of teaching points, but you're still 1-0. And the other great thing for them is they've got a bye. They got a week to work on it before they take on Indiana. Surprising they didn't run the ball better against Hawaii. This is a team that's led the Pac-12 in rushing each of the last 2 years, 71 rushing yards.
And their head coach was a fantastic running back at UCLA. So this bye week is going to pay dividends to UCLA. I hope they're intentional about their work and correcting their miscues during this second week bye week, and then they get into tougher opponents and have to show up.
Again, mention it. It's Indiana. Next game for them, it's 2 weeks from now. The Hoosiers opened up the Curt Cignetti era against Florida International, and a lot of transfers on this roster, including Curtis Rourke, who was the MAC Player of the Year a couple years ago at Ohio University. Hit Zach Horton, one of the many players who came from James Madison, Indiana. on top 7-0. Tyson Lawton. Guy is a good runner, Marcel.
Absolutely. Good, strong runner, finishes hard, and always moving forward.
Another JMU guy. Hoosiers on top 14-0. Amari Farrell flashing some defense. The tip pass closes the door on any comeback for FIU as the Hoosiers win it 31-7. Shane Sparks with Signetti.
Coach Signetti, you told us before the game you were going to learn a lot about your team today. What did you learn?
Well, we got a long way to go before we play a complete game from start to finish. Our defense had one bad series and shut them out in the second half. And offensively, we started fast, but had so many opportunities and really just didn't play very well. Teams were solid, so we've got a lot of improvement to make, but it's a win, and got to get better next week.
Gotta love the facial expression there. I think they probably played better than he's giving them credit for. I mean, again, you're talking about so many transfers, so many new faces, and yet figured out a way not just to win, but to win handily. I think they kind of backed up all the talk that we heard from the offseason about how improved they were going to be.
Absolutely, Dave. Through all the talk in the offseason, through all the headlines, all the jokes or what have you, Indiana was the one team that we saw start fast and finish hard. Yeah. And you're talking about all these transfers. They had the most in the entire Big Ten, and yet they came out and executed at a high clip. When you're running the ball the way they ran the ball, it is not easy. It's talking about gelling, and you're talking about a team being together and cohesive on that offensive line and the running backs.
Largest win for them in a season opener since 2013. They went over 400 yards. I mean, that's happened 6 times in their last 35 games. So again, he may not be thrilled with what we saw, but given how much they've struggled on offense, I think there's a ton of positives to take from this. Western Illinois Friday night here on the Big Ten Network. Next game for the Hoosiers.
Back on Final Drive, Maryland hosting UConn, and things got off to a terrific start. Brock Nolan Ray, the first carry of the season, will not be denied.
Go Terps, go. I don't even know if that's a phrase, but I'm hyped for what I'm seeing.
48-yard touchdown. Terps up 14-0. On to the second quarter. Nick Evers drops back, and Glendon Miller picks him off. One of 3 takeaways for the defense. Maryland on top 23-0 at the half. Third quarter, Billy Edwards showing why he was named the starter, but it's always nice when you can get yards after catch like this from Ty Felton.
Ty Felton picking up right where he left off, the leader of that wide receiver room.
178 career receiving yards for him. Maryland wins big, 50-7. Mike Loxley after starting 1-0.
A great team win, great start to the 2024 season, and great liftoff to it. You know, we talked to our team going into this game about the start and the importance of getting off to a fast start, kind of coming and putting it all together. And I thought we were able to do it today with, you know, all 3 phases contributing to the win. In turn, you know, we had a turnover on special teams, defensively created some turnovers. We'll celebrate it tonight. They'll be off tomorrow. Get back in here Monday evening and start our preparation as we enter into our Big Ten opener next week, which comes upon us pretty quickly.
Yeah, they got Michigan State coming to town next week. All right, let's go to West Lafayette. How about Hudson Card and the day that he had? Like Mary Poppins, practically perfect in every way. He only had 1 incompletion. That one was a touchdown to Max Clare. Purdue on top early, 7-0 against Indiana State. Second quarter now. Denylon Morissette, the Georgia transfer. Wide open, 21-0. 4 touchdowns to 4 different receivers today for Hudson Card. 24 of 25. That is a 96% completion percentage. I saw you doing the math.
I couldn't do that in a video yet.
49-0 is the final. Hudson Card and the Boilers get it done. Let's hear his thoughts after a record-setting performance.
I think it's, you know, just the preparation that we put in, and you know, I couldn't have done it without everyone around me. You know, the O-lines played their butts off, barely got hit, and then, you know, all the guys around me, you know, made me look good at the end of the day. So, you know, we had countless guys out there that I could feed the ball to and go make plays, and you know, I think it's just the preparation that we had.
Moving on to Northwestern, and guess what, Washington? There's now sailgating in Evanston. A beautiful day on Lake Michigan, hosting Miami of Ohio. Mike Wright calling his own number here in the third quarter, and they needed that. First touchdown of his as a Wildcat. Northwestern on top, 10-3, the first touchdown of the season. And on a day where points were at a premium, hat tip to the defense, Brock.
Defense will hold them down when they need them most. Northwestern plays their best when the game is on the line.
Evan Smith gets the pick there a little bit later in the fourth quarter. How about Rob Fitzgerald coming up with the game-sealing pick for the Wildcats? Northwestern wins it. Kylan Mills with head coach David Braun.
Coach, you said your defense would have to make some big plays in the second half. There wasn't one bigger than defensive back Robert Fitzgerald making that interception with 2 minutes to go. What's going through your mind as that play develops?
I'm just so excited for Fitz. Had a great fall camp, seen so much growth and development out of him, and for him to show up in a 2-minute drill was such a critical play. Excited for him, excited for our team. Great finish by our defense.
Your brand new temporary home, a beautiful venue on the lakefront. How would you describe the atmosphere?
Awesome, unique, ours. It was awesome. This place was buzzing today.
Unique and ours. I love those descriptors there. And I think, again, on a day where the offense wasn't quite finding its footing, they did enough and the defense did what they had to do. What'd you make of the Northwestern win today?
Mike Wright, the fact that he used his legs, he didn't rely on his legs. In his previous 2 stops at Mississippi State and Vanderbilt, when he was uncomfortable, when he panicked, he just took off and ran because he's the fastest guy on the field. The fact that he really didn't run until he called his own number in the second half to score, and then later in the game to get the final first down to seal the game. I like that he used his legs, not relied on them.
It'll be a short week. They've got Duke coming to town on Friday. Let's talk about Purdue and Hudson Card in midseason form. I mean, he was absolutely terrific. He missed 1 completion today. What did you make of that record-setting performance? It set an FBS record.
The fact that he spread the ball around. You mentioned that 4 Boilermakers had receiving touchdowns. 7 different Boilermakers had receptions in the first quarter alone. You add to that, they were getting it done on the ground. Multiple Boilermaker running backs rushed for over 80 yards. The more you can spread it out, the more Graham Harrell can cook.
Bye week, and then Notre Dame come into town, so they'll have some time to get ready for the Irish. And then the last team to get a thought on, how about Maryland and Billy Edwards? We found out why today he was named the starter.
100%. There were some question marks at that bowl game. We knew he had the potential to be the guy. The bowl game didn't really show it, but man, did he have one heck of a spring and a summer because he is true to form.
You know what's nice is that we just get to talk about wins this whole day. 12-0. It's a good feeling. Yes, great day for the Big Ten, a historic day for the Big Ten.
It is time for our game leaders, sponsored by Auto Owners Insurance. Simple human sense. How about the freshmen in the Big Ten in week 1? We've already shown you all of these performances, but we got them on one nifty graphic. Smith, Raiola, Vanderzee, all very impressive. All right, it is time for the segment so good we named the show after it. The Final Drive on the Final Drive. One thought on each and every team that has played so far in the Big Ten. That's 17 of the 18 schools. We're going to go all the way back to Thursday. If you can remember it, Brock. Illinois 45-0 over EIU. What did you take from the Illini?
A healthy Luke Altmaier, a sight for sore eyes, a healthy Caden Fagan. Last year for Illinois was really what could have been if they were healthy. They're healthy, and we know that they are for real.
I got a big game coming up next week against Kansas. This is going to be a good measuring stick for them. What about Indiana, Marcel?
Kurt Signegi, with his first game coming in and leading Indiana through all the headlines, all the talk, all of the new players and transfers, they can flat out run the football.
Sure can. Just their 5th win in their last 22 games. There are going to be a lot more where that came from. The Hawkeyes, man.
Tim Lester's in the house, and it will be fine. I understand it wasn't the start that everybody was hoping for, but it was the finish you were looking for. Caleb Johnson hopefully is playing the entirety of the rest of the season, meaning that they will be fine.
And Ashley mentioned it. They had 3 touchdown catches from wide receivers today. They had
Tim Lester's in the house.
All of last year.
Tim Lester's in the house, baby.
Last year, it's incredible. All right, Marcel, what about the Terps?
I'm thinking about the Terps, and I think about Billy Edwards. He was an impressive and pleasant surprise. He was accurate. He was efficient. And he was explosive. He had a fantastic start to this season. Great game, great win.
Brock, defending national champs.
Slow start and really not a dominant finish, but Will Johnson already starting his resume for the Thorpe Award.
Yeah, Texas in Ann Arbor on Saturday. I feel like we're going to talk about that a little bit on the network this week. Marcel, narrow win for Michigan State on Friday. What did you take from Jonathan Smith's debut?
Sparty has all the reason to be optimistic, and that reason is Aiden Childs. The kid has a very, very high upside. He can flat out throw the ball. It all looks pretty coming out of his hands. They need to fix some miscues, but they definitely have an opportunity to be successful this season.
12 penalties, 3 turnovers, but man, they ran the ball well. Gophers, narrow loss, field goal at the end that they weren't able to convert on.
Disappointing, brutal, all the negative words. Your most reliable player, your kicker, missing 2 kicks. Either one could have won you the game. All you can do now is toss it aside and get ready for next week.
Nebraska.
Dylan Raiola is a grown man at the quarterback position, the young leader, and he and Matt Rule are a match made in heaven.
40 points for them. They averaged 18 last year. Northwestern figures out a way.
If you want to beat Northwestern, you better be at multiple possessions going into the fourth quarter. You cannot let that game be close because they will get you.
Yeah, won another close game after going 6-2 in one-score games a season ago. Ohio State, Marcel.
For anyone who was doubting Ohio State and that number 2 ranking in the country, stop.
57-8 now under Ryan Day. It's pretty good. Oregon, a tad underwhelming, but
offensive line very underwhelming. And with these upcoming games, that offensive line is going to have to step it up. But the fact remains, Dylan Gabriel still on pace to break every record known to man.
They had 47 plays of 30 yards or longer last year. They had 0 against the Vandals.
That will change.
It'll change. Penn State, Marcel.
Penn State knows who they are, they know their identity, and they embrace it. They just add to it. That's what the good teams do. They wanted to be more explosive. They got more explosive.
As impressive a win as there was in the league this weekend. Purdue looked awfully good.
The more Hudson Card can spread the ball around, the better he will be. As long as everyone's healthy, he'll do just that.
First season opening shutout for them since 2004. Rutgers, again, we got to think way back. Took out Howard Thursday.
One word, Manungai.
Yeah, he's tough. 329 rushing yards
Flat
for them.
dog.
UCLA is a tough game out on the islands, but got to win.
It could have been brutal, and you can't say that the travel got to them because they're traveling more than almost anyone this year, so they're going to have to figure that out.
Again, we talk about Indiana next, then LSU, then Oregon. It is a really brutal schedule early on. The Huskies, Marcel.
Yes! Nothing else necessary.
You going to bark for us, or is that later in the year? All right. Better than 7 yards per play for them, and then we'll finish up with the Badgers beat Western Michigan on Friday.
Finished strong, and they got the win, and wins are important to get. I still have more questions about Wisconsin than maybe any other team. I don't know who they are yet, but they got the win. That's what matters.
They only had 1 play longer than 12 yards.
A lot of questions.
None longer than 20.
Yeah.
But again, 1-0. You figure these things out. It's time for our Saturday Standouts. Marcel Reese, lead us off.
Ooh, Jeremiah Smith, the young freshman phenom at wide receiver for Ohio State, is absolutely fantastic, living up to the hype. I cannot wait to continue to watch him for the rest of the season.
Who do you got, Brock?
Billy Edwards. Talk about some big shoes to fill. Talia Tagovailoa left his mark in Big Ten history and therefore Maryland history. It was a brutal bowl game for Billy Edwards, but he comes out and throws for over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. Welcome to the Big Ten officially.
I'm going with Hudson Card. How about 24 of 25? Ashley did the math. 96%. It's tied for the NCAA record for the highest completion percentage ever for a quarterback with 20 or more attempts. Ever. Ever's a long time, Ashley.
Ever is a really long time.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with a quarterback as well. By the way, I didn't actually do the math. I just saw it. Dylan Raiola, Lincoln, Nebraska, poised. He made some great decisions, and he just looked the part today in his college debut. And I'll say this, Colorado coming to town next week. If he can lead Nebraska to a win over the Buffs, whenever he turns 21, he will never pay for a drink in that town. I don't know when he turns 21. I think he's still got a few years. Okay, 17 games in the books, guys, but there is still one more that we need to talk about here as we wrap up this show, and that maybe is the biggest of the weekend. LSU and USC in the house that Marcel Reese built.
It's going to be a fantastic game. First of all, USC is entering in the first era without Caleb Williams in the past couple years. What is that offense going to look like? What is Miller Moss going to do? Well, we know one thing. They're playing in one of the most beautiful buildings in the world in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas.
Two fantastic offenses. So I'm looking at the defenses because both of these teams had similar years a season ago. Crazy offenses, couldn't stop anybody. Whoever can get a stop gets the win.